Aloha and welcome to the Groundswell Marketing Podcast. Today we have a really unique guest, Tim Hughes. He's the author of two books, Social Selling and Smarketing. He's somebody that I've been following for a long time, and he is the top expert under this topic of social selling. And it's important because marketing sales intersect, and work together. And he really is drawn into creating a process and an approach to how to make it successful. And he is really, to be honest with you, I think he's the top guy in the world on the topic. Listen in because he's got some great ideas, and everybody knows that marketing can't stand alone. It's got to have sales too. So he really kind of shares a lot of his insights and his years of experience. So without further ado, let's paddle in. Aloha and welcome to another episode of the Groundswell Marketing Podcast, where I connect you to top experts in marketing and business. My aim here is to help you with sustainable and impactful strategies and ideas. Today we're going to do a deep dive into social media, and more specifically, a topic I'm really stoked to bring to you, social selling. With today's guest, social media kingpin, social selling Jedi, Tim Hughes. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. You've been firing me emails for weeks on this saying, can we talk about this? And can we talk about this? So I'm really excited.
Totally. And I've been following you for so long.
Well, I'm
so stoked to finally do this.
I'm really appreciate, it's great to meet people that are following me, and I really appreciate everybody who does follow me, everybody who interacts, everybody who connects, because that's what social's about, and that's what kind of makes the social world go round. So I appreciate it, Scott.
You bet. Thank you. And, to be honest with you, like when my social selling sort of journey, when I was in sales myself, that was when I was started following you. But as far as I can tell, in my opinion, this is my homeland opinion, is you are the top guy to talk about the topic of social media and social media selling. You really have got this down with your book, and I can't wait for us to sort of unbox a whole bunch of ideas. So what I'd like to do today.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm social selling is what we do. And it's what I've done since 2015, 2016. And I decided then that I wanted to be the number one expert in the world in social selling. And I'm a modest Brit, so it's difficult for me to say. But I think, there's a lot of people that have fallen by the wayside. And what we've done, Adam and Alex, my two business partners, is that we've created a company that does social selling, and that's what we do day in, day out. We're transforming companies and transforming sales teams, and it's I can't wait to get up in the morning. It's an amazing thing.
Awesome. And it's a topic that I think a lot of people sort of like mix up. They think social selling is marketing, or it's just being on LinkedIn. And I think that might be a great way to start is go, what is social selling?
It's a really good question, Scott. And so first and foremost, what social selling isn't is selling on social. The world has changed, and we all now have these wonderful devices that allow us to go online. I can sit in a cafe on a Saturday and buy something. I can buy anything from a car to, a 20 million outsourcing deal. And I can do that by going online and searching for the people that might want to sell me that sort of thing. And so social selling is the reaction that our sellers need to take for the fact that there are people that are social buying. And that's the key thing. Now, nobody gets up in the morning and says, first thing I want to do today is actually talk to a really manipulative salesperson. Nobody does that. And so these people that send you these connection requests and then basically send you a list of their products and services, that's not social selling, that's spamming. So that's the first thing. Any outbound type of marketing, any marketing where somebody interrupts you and broadcasts, that's not social selling. Social enables you to get the meeting for you to then to sell. And so a lot of people say, social selling is no use to me because I have to meet people face to face. Nobody's ever said that you can't meet people face to face. The whole point of social selling is to get on a call or get on and have a meeting. As I say, then you can sell. And then what you can do is you can nurture. So some people say that social selling is marketing. Well, as all of every single sales guru, I think, will agree that you have to prospect. And what we're able to do, and I think we're the only company in the world that does this, is actually provide a social selling prospecting methodology. And what we do is that we transform companies that are doing cold calling and emailing and all that rubbish that doesn't work anymore. And now what they're doing is that they're able to increase their revenues by like 30% by social prospecting. But also what you're doing is you're able to use social during the sales process. So using social, you should be able to shorten the sales process. You should be able to increase your win rate. You should be able to actually get wider and deeper in accounts. So account-based marketing, or use it from a new business perspective. I'm a new business salesperson, so that's kind of where I've come from and how I've always used social in the past. So I know I've kind of gone on for a little while there, Scott, but I've tried to cover a number of the elements. Come back to me.
You bet. So you've got a couple of things I'd love to kind of just sort of expand on. One is it fair to say that social selling is primarily business to business?
We generally do business to business. That's what we focus on. I wouldn't say it was, because I'd actually say that a lot of brands are starting to use social more. Adidas, for example, they know that their key buyers, which are males, I think from 22 to 25 or something like that, are big users of ad blockers. So during the Olympics, they didn't use advertising, or they dialed down their advertising spend, and they dialed up their use of social because they know that type of person is actually on social. And that could be the use of influencers. Influencers, for example, is a really good way of top of the funnel marketing. So it's not just that, but we work my background is B2B, so we generally work in a B2B environment, my business.
Okay. So you mentioned one thing, and let's kind of talk about it a little bit, which is account-based selling. Yeah. My understanding is it's basically when you need to have multiple stakeholders that you need to sell to. So with social selling, if I'm correct about that, first of all, am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. In my previous company, we did some research. We had 7 people out of a sales team of 60 that always did the number. And when I mean they did the number, they would do 200, 300, 400%. And I did some work to find out if there was something that was common with those individuals. And one of the things that they actually had common was that in all of the accounts they managed, generally they were in contact with over 150 people. And the people that weren't doing the number generally, their view was, well, I'm talking to Fred in IT, and that's all I need to do. But if you look at the Gartner figures that have just recently come out, the number of people that are involved in the buying process now is about 10. So it's gone up from, it was 4.7 like 4 years ago, 6.8 2 years ago, and now it's 10. And I think that's because more people are spreading their risk and spreading their political capital when it comes to decisions that need to be made in a business-to-business environment. Now, the thing about us salespeople is what we should do, and in an ideal world, is go and meet all those 10 people. So first and foremost, we need to know who they are. Then we need to go and see them. Now, traditionally, what we've done is in a legacy sales environment is that we had one person and we went and saw that person, or 2 people, or maybe 3. But now, how do we scale to actually meet all those 10 people? Because we've probably still got the same number that we've got to deliver. And we're now, the number of meetings that we're going to have to do is just, it's just increased. So how do we do that? And we can do that and enable us to scale through using social and building relationships with people through social. Because now, if I connect to someone on LinkedIn, in a way, people see that, you already have a bond with that person. What you can also do is then the likelihood is you don't know all the 10 people in the decision-making process. So what you do is that you need to therefore be connecting with 10, 20, 50, maybe 100 people within your account. I don't know. Obviously, if you work in the mid-market and you've got 2,000 accounts, this wouldn't work, but you wouldn't necessarily be doing account-based marketing. But, in a SaaS environment where you may have a big account and you need to land and expand, that's what you need to be doing. And you need to be growing those connections. So what I would say, Scott, 3 fundamentals of social selling. First is you need to have a personal brand, which is what I mean by that is you have to have a LinkedIn profile that would be interesting to a buyer. In the B2B environment, buyers know that they have to deal with salespeople, but they're looking for experts. So what they're looking for is somebody that can help them and guide them. Now, a lot of people, what they get wrong is that they fill in their LinkedIn profile. They think it's about their company and their product. It's not. It's about you. When if I go for a drink with you, you don't talk about your products and what you do at work. You'll talk about other things like what did you do at the weekend? Did you think, what did you watch the football, during the week? Those sort of things. And what you need to do is get over your personality and who you are, not what your product is and what you sell. I invite anybody to look at my LinkedIn profile. It's Timothy Hughes, Hughes, or Tim Hughes. It should come up. And I put my profile up as a great example of what people's profiles should look like. That's the first thing. The second thing is you need to have a network. This isn't sending out blind connections and hoping and having a whole bunch of connections. I know someone who's got 30,000 connections and they're out of work. Having 30,000 connections doesn't get you anything. It's about a network, about people who know who you are, you have some sort of relationship with, and you have had some sort of, you've sent them a connection request. So I welcome anybody who's listening to this to send me a connection request, but please send me some context that says, I heard you on Scott's Groundswell podcast. Please, can we connect? And I would love to. So you need to have some sort of connection. The third thing that you need is to have content. Now, I'm not saying that what you do is you write content and then sit there and hope and pray that somebody will come and get you and find you. You need to have content because people are looking for people who are going to be experts that are going to help them and guide them. And your content is your ability to show to the outside world that you're insightful, that you're educational, that you understand the industry, that you understand their business issues, and you're relevant to those people. Every senior leader that I talk to, they all agree with that and back that up. I was talking to a CIO at Christmas Drinks, and he was saying that he gets bombarded with people basically sending him templated connection requests. He's got competitors that are using the same template, but they're not relevant to him. They don't provide him with any industry background. They don't understand what his business issues are. But I just digress. We've got a client, and they've actually been instructed by their management to go for unsolicited bids. They're in a growth market where it's all about market share, and they're going to basically bid anything. It doesn't matter if it moves; they're going to bid it. So I normally I would tell people to put unsolicited bids in the bin, but this guy's been told to do it. It's a spreadsheet. It just says yes or no, and he was given 2 sides of A4 to basically write about the company. And what he decided to do was he actually sent it in and said, "I'm not going to write anything about the company. You can get that off the internet. You can go to a website. Here it is." He said, "But what I will do is I'm going to send you a link to 3 blogs I've written." Now, this is a sales guy writing blogs. These are these three blogs I've written. I think you should read these. These will interest you. The customer rang him back within 10 minutes and said, "You're on the shortlist." And he said, "You're on the
Right. It's a differentiator at this point when you actually set yourself apart with information that's relevant, answering their questions.
The client said, "I've read your blogs. You obviously understand the business issues. You understand the industry that I'm in. For that alone, you're on the shortlist." Now, that doesn't mean he won the business, but we all know in sales isn't necessarily, what we do in sales is shed loads of tactical things to make sure that we get to the next stage. Because when we get on the shortlist, we then will do some other tactical things to make sure we get to the next thing. But, these are simple things that salespeople are doing right now to differentiate themselves from the competition. And what we're seeing is social empowering the pipeline to win.
Makes a ton of sense that would work that way. I guess a lot of people in their mind, they're going, okay, I'm assuming what we're speaking of in terms of how to do this would be mostly LinkedIn, correct? And probably Twitter to some degree?
LinkedIn and Twitter. If you sell in to IT, definitely there's a big IT contingent on Twitter. And maybe a bit of Instagram. But you need to be where your customers are, which are generally in LinkedIn and Twitter. And probably when you're starting off, you just need to focus and make sure you get the basics right. So I would just focus on LinkedIn to begin with, and then go LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yeah, LinkedIn's kind of good because, it's not kind of good. It's great because you actually can see what the role is in the organization. And so if you have multiple stakeholders, you can kind of identify and kind of wrap your arms around the different people you need to influence. But I guess maybe one of the questions I have is, what would be, if you were to walk someone through a step a little bit about, okay, I'm going to reach somebody. My goal is I'm an entrepreneur or I'm a salesperson, excuse me, and I want to actually build out my network. And I want to get up the nerve, like you said, build my profile, have relevant content. I'm now ready to do an outreach. What is some of the techniques, tools, or processes of just making that first contact? Because I think that's where a lot of people are afraid, or they're there may be some people on one hand just send an invite, but there's a whole bunch of other people who have done those things, but they're just a little nervous about the outreach. What do you recommend?
I think that there's a number of things that you can do with outreach, and that depends on how well you know the person, or how well you're known in the network. There are some fundamentals that you need to have. If you start outreaching people without a personal brand, you just look like a spammer. We had a customer that came to us and said, we sent out 250 emails and got nowhere, and looked at us as if to say, oh yeah, we've got you there. It's like, well, and I turned around and said, well, yeah, of course you'd get nowhere because you look like spammers. If you sent me an email and you had LinkedIn profiles like you've got, I wouldn't certainly connect with you. So it's so important. We get a lot of people wanting shortcuts. There aren't shortcuts. Working and selling in social selling, it's actually easier than cold calling, but it's still hard work. So you need to have a personal brand. You need to have and start building a network. You need to be putting out interesting content, because if you start reaching out and connecting with people, all they're going to do is look at your profile, and then they're going to make a judgment. And that judgment will be whether you're interesting, whether you're funny, whether you're boring, whether you're a spammer. And the thing is, that you only have one chance of doing that. So it's really important that you put in the groundwork ahead to make sure that you do have a buyer-centric profile. You do have a network. Now, the bigger network you've got, the more that you're going to spread your message. Now, you're a great example, Scott, of, you've been following me for a long time. But to be honest, I didn't know that you were listening to me. Now, I don't know how long we've been connected, but I have a lot of people that will come to me that aren't in my network. And, some people will come to me and say, I've been listening to reading what you've been doing, and they won't be in my network, and they'll say, can you come and talk at our board? Okay, that's great. The thing is that you need to understand that this isn't about necessarily selling to your network, it's selling through your network. Your network should know you, like you, and love you. This is about getting to new people. So to answer your question, Scott, how can you do that? You can do that through referrals. Look for an organization.
Right.
Look for your.
So when's
look for your target organization. Look for your target people, and then have a look on LinkedIn and see if there's any common connections. Go to one of those common connections and say, do you think that you could get me to that other person? Now, again, if you have a profile that makes you look like a spammer, the answer to that referral is probably going to be no. So one of the things is referrals. one of the big things, especially within professional services, is to look at alumni. So people that have previously worked at the company, people that went to the same university as you. But there's no reason why you can't reach out to people, connect to people. The important thing is that you don't do it in a spammy way. So what's a spammy way? So social, even though we call it social selling, social is not the place to sell. Social is the place for you to get a connection and build a relationship. You then, once you have a relationship, you get to the point where you say, okay, let's have a call or let's have a meeting. You sound interesting. We seem to have the same thing in common. Let's get together and have a meeting. When you came to me, Scott, and said, would you like to come on a podcast? You say, I've read this of yours. I've read your book. I've read your podcast. I understand that you do this. Would you please come on and come onto the podcast? So you've actually done your background. And of course, I'm flattered with the fact that you know all this stuff about me. Of course, everybody is. And so what we would recommend if you were going to reach out to somebody is that you would find two things of common between you. Went to the same university. You both do charity cycling. Something that you have of an element of common. That's no different than what we would do in an analog world. We'd go to a networking event. I'd get a coffee and I'd come over. So what's your name? Well, I'm Scott. So have you traveled far today? What's the terrible weather we've got at the moment? And where did you go to school? Well, I did this, and what did you major on, to use your a North American term? You would have a conversation with somebody to find commonality, because we always do that. Because once we find commonality, we start trusting each other. Once we find that commonality, quite often during a networking event, someone actually say to you, so what do you do? Obviously, you've got an opportunity to pitch at that point. You may not completely do what people would see as a demo. You might say, well, we do this on, the sort of elevator pitch. But what you'll find is that if you are interesting, you are insightful, people will come to you and actually say, tell us what you do. And that's a whole different game than you ringing them up and saying and shouting at them down the phone about buy my shit.
Right. It's like it puts context into any contact. It would be just like going, hey, how are you? But if you have some sort of, hey, we met before, I've been, whatever, like just be helping them, people understand that you actually have made an investment of time. It means more to people. So one of the things I want to tell you though is, I just was on my, I have a social selling feed because I've been following this. I basically have one social selling news and social selling. And I looked at when I actually first connected with you, and it was in 2015. I retweeted a bunch of times on my feeds about you, but you wouldn't know because it doesn't really have my name. It's a feed called social selling. And one of the techniques I used when I was trying to get up to speed on tactics and following you and other individuals on the topic is I just created a Twitter feed so that I could just make it my sort of inbound learning feed and so forth. And that's actually why I've actually been following you, but it wasn't me personally. It was my. It's a
really good point, Scott. Brian Fanzo, who is probably one of the best Snapchat people in the world. I met him and I said, so how come you're just so amazing? He said, what I did was I set up an account, not in my name, just basically I made up an account and I followed people who I thought was good at it for 6 months. And I worked out, and from that I worked out what good looked like. And that's how I became an expert at it. And I think that's something that people who may be new to social or using social, what they need to do is start experimenting, and experimenting certainly maybe in a safe environment by doing what you did by creating a Twitter account, which is a name of a product or a process rather than necessarily a person. Obviously, Scott, I would recommend my social selling book as well, but I'm biased.
No, it's a great book. Maybe let's talk about that book a little bit. It breaks down the techniques to influence buyers and changemakers, which is one of the things I think people, they're going to go, what's a changemaker? So we might want to go into that. But you're also, leveraging social platforms and approach to sales in a way that's kind of moving away from this whole interruption selling, which I think is like so offside to now really building relationships. Do you want to kind of maybe just give us a breakdown of what the book's about and some of the principles that you share in the book?
So I was part of a social selling rollout across about 4,000 people in a big US IT company across Europe, and we did a whole bunch of things where we failed with a whole load of things, and we were successful with a whole bunch of things. And using that experience, I wrote that up into a book, which is on Amazon. It's called Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. And it's really my experience up to that date. To answer your question about Changemakers, I've done a whole bunch of old sales methodologies. And, there's different types of buyers. There's, an economic buyer. There's, the person who signs the check. There's a user buyer. But there's a difference in the marketplace that I've seen over the last number of years, which is this person in an environment that actually wants your product to win, but are not necessarily supporting you. So in the past, there's a person called an internal salesman or an angel or a coach. And what they are people in an organization that want your product to win, and therefore they help you. Whereas a change maker, actually, they are finding the product that they think is right. They will only support you because they think it's right, not because it's going to be on your CV or something. And they are expending political capital, taking your product forward. So in the book, I talk about.
So they're influencing the internal.
Sales, so they're influencing the buying process. Generally, what you'll find is that they don't have authority, but they have influence. And what we're seeing are a typical example of a meeting with a change maker will be a really bad meeting. You turn up, you've got your sales manager, you've got that new deck from marketing, you go through it, and basically they tear you apart and they throw you out on the street. And you go, well, you can throw that, deck in the bin because we're not going to use that again. And actually what the change maker does is that the reason why they will tear you apart is that they know that they're expending political capital taking you forward. And that's a whole different ball game. Yeah. So rather than an inside coach, this person is going to be doing this, and they're actually going to do it because they want to be chief executive in 5 years. This is not someone in IT that thinks you're kind of great and you take them out for beers and stuff. This is somebody that they're going to place their future career on buying your product. We use some research from Google, and they think Google reckon this person is about between the age of 28 and 35. That was in 2015, so maybe the ages have changed. The reason for that is that they see the person they understand social, but they also have business acumen.
Okay, so it's not the person I thought it was going to be when you first described it. What I was thinking was like basically the person that's sort of there going, hey, I'd really like to get to help you sell you in. What you're saying is That's a different person. This person is actually they're partnering with you.
I've in the past I've worked for I've been associated with a large IT tech company, and I would have people coming to me saying, we're going to buy your product because I want it on my CV. And fine, well, and that was their personal win to buy. And then obviously they would justify it through using facts, and the business case would support their personal win, which is, any sales methodology will teach you that. The change maker is different because this person isn't necessarily supporting supporting your product because it's going to get on their CV. They're supporting it for selfish reasons because they're going to support, they're going to help. This is going to drive change through the organization, and this is going to make them look like heroes. And it's going to, because of them, they're going to look like the heroes, and they're going to be the next chief exec. They're going to be the next finance director or CIO or whatever it is. It's, again, selfish reasons, but they're not supporting you because yeah, and we see that a lot.
However, how do you identify them? How do you actually source them out? Like, how do you yeah, is it maybe that could you make content that says, here's how our product can increase your career? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you had a case study, you could literally go, here's how Bob, furthered his career by hiring us, I mean,
you could do that. And that's one of the things that is so exciting about sales today, which is that there are so many different. There are all of the old buyer types that we've seen on sales methodologies, but there's this new person. Now we call it a changemaker. What was CEB, which is now Gartner, they call it a mobilizer. And in their book, is it The Connected Customer? The one that came out after Challenger. They actually have 10 different mobilizers, 10 different types of mode that they're in. This is some serious stuff. Right.
So I get that there's, for large organizations, social selling and Changemaker. What if you're an entrepreneur and you're a one-man show or maybe a business of 3 people? How does social selling, what techniques can they apply that would be effective for them?
Really good question, Scott, because we're a small business as well. Up until we've been going now nearly 3 years. For our first 2 years, we were 3 people. And we do no outbound marketing at all. We don't do any advertising. We don't do any cold calling. We don't do any unsolicited emails. We believe that if someone's going to come and buy social from us, we need to be a social organization. So we run the business on social as well. I insist on, I won't use reply to internal emails between 9 and 5:30. So we run the business on Slack. So totally social. And we became a global organization it was just like 1 day shy of 2 years. And that's partly because social has a global audience. You can set yourself up on social. It's free. The only cost is your time. And you've got a whole bunch of buyers, there's 3.5 billion people on social media. There's 620 million people on LinkedIn. That's kind of a pretty good target market. And all of those people are looking for interesting content. Now, I'm not saying that you write content and then hope people will come and contact you, though. We get 3 pieces of inbound every single day. What I'm talking about is using content as a way of people seeing you out there, and people will, if you're sharing content on social, people will find it. People will find it interesting. Hopefully, people will interact with it. Scott, you've been following me since for 4 years, and here we are. So we're sitting here and talking because of social. So I can put out a piece of content, and I still get inbound from content that I wrote 4 years ago. So if you go to an event or a conference, you're only there for 2 days. I write content, and it's there forever, and people can find it. And so small, we're now 8 people, but even when we were 3 people, we put out a unique piece of content every day. Every day we put out a new blog. We've done 700 in the last 3 years, at least 700.
Okay. So if LinkedIn is one of the primary sort of tools, what's your thoughts on use of video? And then now the new announcement of having LinkedIn Live.
Video is fantastic. As long as you recognize the new world we're living in, that it's not about interruption and broadcast. So, one of the issues that corporates are grappling with at the moment is that they think that we're interested in their company and we're interested in their products, and we're not. We don't have time for that. We've got a barbecue at the weekend. I've got to take the kids to football. I've got my grandparents. I've got to go and see them in hospital. That's what's important to me. Your product and your company, I'm not interested, and nobody is. And corporations still keep pouring money into corporate content. We're the best, with a number one, whatever, and no one's interested.
So if they're not interested, what are they interested in?
Interested in is things that are going to help them, tell them something they don't know already, provide them with education. Now, we've written 700 blogs, but actually what we're doing is that we actually publish how we social sell. We're currently doing some work where we're basically putting a prospecting method all the way through a business, and I published it as a blog yesterday. So exactly what we do is there. If you read my book, I tell you everything in there that I knew about social selling up to 2015. You may go, well, why would you do that? Well, there's a whole bunch of people that look at that and go, great, Tim, that's brilliant. I'll go and implement that in my company. That's good, fine. But you're never going to buy from me. But there'll be a whole bunch of people that will go, do you know, I couldn't do that myself. I'm going to give Tim Hughes a call. It's a bit like mending your washing machine. There's loads of videos on YouTube to show you how to do it. But actually, would I do it myself? No, because I'd make a mess of it. The same with mending my car. That you will always find something to bring people in to actually help you.
So corporate content needs to shift from being sort of like, here's the feature benefits, to going, hey, this is how this helps you, or here's 5 different ways that we found that this can improve your life. And that's going to get people more connected to your product. Or if you're the one that's delivering the service, it's going to have them go, hey, I can do it myself, or I just hire you because you seem to know it really well. Let's do business.
They can do that. The best thing that corporates can do is actually activate their employees to talk about things, because and teach employees to do it in an authentic way. So we're training a company where they do big, one of the things they do is big data. And I haven't got a clue what big data is, except I know it's probably big and there's some data. And this guy sat down and he wrote this blog, and it was all about the fact that he'd been given an Apple Watch for his Christmas. And, he's really, now he tracks everything. He tracks, his pulse and how many steps he does. And then what he did was that he wrote about that, and then he attributed to the fact that now he's got loads of data and it's big and he doesn't know what to do with it. And what he needs to do is make sure he's not hacked and that. So he was able to turn that round so it wasn't a sales pitch, but you laughed at the end of the blog, because he turned an everyday occurrence into something about the company. And so it's, you don't see it as an advert. It's, we gained something. It was funny. It was insightful. And the thing is about what companies need to understand nowadays is that they only have one unique selling point. And that unique selling point is their people. Because everybody is different. You're an accumulation of all of your experiences, of all of your schools, your broken hearts, your fights in the playground, everything of those things. You are an accumulation of all those experiences. And that makes everybody unique, and everybody in a company is unique as well. And that's the only unique that people have. And I suggest, I'm challenging people to go to a company and say, what's your unique selling point? And if they don't say our people, they don't understand the way that marketing works today.
Interesting. Very interesting. And I agree with this way of thinking. That's just a reality that I think a lot of businesses have not caught up with. I mean, they're still enamored with, ad campaigns that are going to somehow just influence. And to me, one of the things you said about, marketing is now really about people. One of the topics that'd be interesting to hear about is you have a business and the salesperson is like supposedly creating content. in my view, and when I've consulted businesses on social selling, was like, you need to engage everybody that's on LinkedIn to be part of the solution. And I'm curious to see how you recommend or tell businesses like, across the company how they can contribute to this the social selling or content creation.
The thing is that you have to activate and empower the people. This is not about the classic employee advocacy tool thing, which is where at my previous company, which is where what they wanted you to do was connect your social feed to this bit of software, and they would push out corporate content. Of course, nobody wants that. Yeah, it's just
it's like a broadcast model.
And I have really salespeople with 200 followers, and they'd say, "Well, I can't get my follower account up." And I go, "Yeah, because you're basically spamming people, and nobody's interested. We're not interested in your corporate content. We are interested in a funny article that connects this guy's Apple Watch with big data. It's something that would be memorable. It would be something, advertisers say it's about getting an emotional reaction. I got an emotional reaction from Barry's blog, not from an advert. Most adverts I will just ignore, and we do that. What we've done is we've learned to basically filter those out. So the key thing is to get people to, you've got to activate them, and you've got to give them, and get them to understand the etiquette. They need to understand that the certain things you can't do, like you can't publish you can't say, "Hey, we've got great results," when the results haven't been published, etc. So there has to be a proper program to teach people. Like someone said to me the other day, "You can't teach common sense," and it's very true. What you've got to do is that you've got to make sure that people know what's right and what's wrong, and most people do. But the best thing to make sure that you haven't got some of the problems that you can get is to make sure that you're teaching people the right thing. So you asked, what impact can that make to the business? So if you've got your people talking in a non-salesy way, you should be making an impact on your revenues. You should be getting people going, "I didn't know that you do that," or "I'm interested in one of those." And the key thing that we see, one of the measures that I have around social selling is around inbound. So that's people coming to you and saying, "Read your stuff. I've been following you for a little while. Can you tell me more, or can you come and see me?" And that's really important that you make that switch from your the need to basically annoy people by doing outbound and actually start working on getting people to come to you inbound. And as I said, we get 3 pieces of inbound every day, and we're 8 people. So small companies can do this, big companies can do this. Sorry,
so
Scott.
What are some of the things you can do to make? Oh, sorry. What are some of the techniques, or what are some of your thoughts around increasing the, willingness, or make it more frictionless for inbound to come to you?
It's one of the things you need to teach the employees, because we've had technical people who sit at the back and fold their arms and say, "I'm technical, this has nothing to do with me." In fact, technical people like to talk to technical people. So if you've got, as part of an evaluation, you will generally have a technical person. The best thing you can do is to make sure that your technical people are online, and are talking in their language, and people are finding them. And that can be written, it can be video, it can be whatever you want in a way that people can consume it. But what you'll do is that you'll increase your revenues, you'll increase your inbound, and also what we're seeing is an impact in human resources. So we're working with organizations around employee advocacy to make sure that the company becomes the employer of choice in that marketplace. If you look at Facebook, Google, Apple, all of those organizations, you could have a website that you have to go through 250 pages and it keeps falling over 150. You'd still plow on and basically do it because people want to work there. And what they've done is that they've done a great job at creating this environment and saying, "You come and work for us. You won't come to the interview and complain about how much you're going to earn, because you want to come and work here and sit in bin bags and eat jelly beans and be on a leading network. So it's not about your website or anything like that. It's about having that persona out there that people realize that there's a whole bunch of people that they look really cool. They're working for you. They're writing really good stuff. And I'd like to have some of that as well. We've had a sales leader who's written a blog, and he saved £300,000. So that's about $450,000 in recruitment fees because of one blog, by just put it out there saying we're recruiting. This is the type of environment we're in. If you're interested in this sort of thing, come and join us. And within a day, he'd had 40 applicants. They were able to plow that saving back into another salesperson.
So what you're really highlighting is that it's not social selling is almost like it's not a outbound push as much as the environment now is where people are buying. They want to research first. They want to discover. They're maybe they're a little hesitant, so they want to inform themselves a little bit more in the buyer cycle. So you just need to have as much information that answers their questions and is helpful and useful to them as possible.
It's a bit like I liken it to going to the gym. You don't go to the gym and just do arms. You do legs, back, cardio, lots of different things. So it's not one thing. It's not writing content and then hoping someone will find it. You need to look like an expert. You need to have a strong network. You need to have content. You need to be growing your network and doing that from an outbound perspective and doing all of these things holistically. And if you do all those things holistically, what will happen is you'll start getting additional business. We see, people increasing their revenues by 30%. If you add to that employee advocacy, then what you're doing is that you're transforming not just sales, but you're transforming human resources as well. So we see social as transforming the whole of the enterprise. Social isn't just a transformation of sales. It's a transformation of marketing. It's a transformation of human resources, finance, procurement, the whole piece. But organizations can start with sales because you get a quick win. So if you implement social selling and you increase your revenues by 30%, you can reinvest that in transforming HR and transforming finance and procurement, etc.
How important is being consistent? If I were to look at, some people that I know that are in my network and sometimes I'm guilty of this too, is they'll be on there in spurts and then they go away. It's like on and off. And what's the difference? Do you think from somebody that's consistently on there, like in a heartbeat, and the person that's
is the
intermittently?
Key, Scott. People often ask me when's the best time to post, and I don't think it matters. There was some research done on BuzzFeed, and they used to post when they got in the morning, just before they went to get a coffee, about 10:30, just before they went to lunch, and it was, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, I think when everybody publishes this is the best time to publish, then have you ever noticed I get more emails on Tuesdays because it's been widely published that Tuesdays are supposed to be the best day.
Yeah, and I wish people would,
now it no longer is the best day.
People who publish those articles need to be slapped, because all that happens is that people then copy it. I just change the subject. I've had people on LinkedIn talking about templates and people going, yeah, sign me up. It's like, yeah, so you're going to use exactly the same methodology as your competitors? Why would you do that? Are you stupid? The key, going back to the point, the key thing is consistency. Don't just put out three blogs and then two blogs, one blog, and then they disappear. I've seen a lot of people in social come and go, a lot. And a lot of the people who were social sellers, and I'm doing quotes with my fingers, when I first started in 2015 are no longer around. Yeah,
I think a lot of people in social marketing or social selling that I've seen, probably let me know if you agree to this, they've glommed onto one technique and they just kind of rode that horse instead of evolving and looking at it as a bigger, broader approach than just a technique. And I think that's where I think people are getting a little disenchanted with some of the marketing speak and the template-y funnels and things of that nature, because even as a buyer, you're feeling like you're just part of something that feels the same. And I think what you're saying is find your own way and evolve to find a way that connects with your customers.
You just, ever ever since I started in sales, I've always wanted to be different from everybody else. And we seem to be in this situation where we're driving ourselves to a point where we're templating everything. Where's the hack? Where's the shortcut? Where's the template? How can I do this quicker? And we're doing that. And all we're doing is that we're becoming the same as everybody else. And it's a race to the bottom. If you look at our team, Alex Lowe, Adam Gray, Phil Stubbs, Stephen Sumner, look at these people, look what they're doing. What they're doing is that they're creating content, short videos. They're creating conversations. They're creating relationships. And they know that these relationships are things that they will hold, because we all know that 97% of people right now are not buying what we're selling. So what we need to be doing is making sure that we're sowing the seeds for when they do actually come out. And quite a lot of the social marketers say that social selling takes a long time. It's rubbish. It doesn't. I contacted somebody on a Thursday, the CEO of a big, large multinational. Tuesday, I've got a meeting with him and his finance marketing director and his head of PR. If you're using the proper techniques, social selling does not take a long time, and you can get higher faster with social selling.
Totally agree. And I think leading with something of value and you're consistently putting it out there is where, as over time, it's almost like it has an accumulative effect. You're going to get exponential returns the longer, more consistent you do this. So that's where the patience comes in. You can't just, you could get a result right away for sure, but I think I'm guessing you're probably going to get more of a result over time. At least that's what I'm experiencing, is like right now, I'm just hitting a stride.
What we're finding is, and I know I've probably said this 3 or 4 times, it's providing people with insight and educational content, and people, Adam Gray, he puts out on a Monday a very short 1-2 minute video on something that he's thought about over the weekend about, how to do something, particularly on LinkedIn, about how to sell through your network, or what, why it's important to use employee advocates to talk out on social rather than to do the classic corporate thing, which is to stand on the top of a building and try and shout through a megaphone. Alex Lowe, for example, he does his Ask Alex on a Friday. Again, short video, 1.5 minutes, talks about something that's basically cropped up during the week during his meetings. I put out a lot of written work, and one of the things that people have to get over is that social selling is a change of mindset and a change of habit. So we get a lot of salespeople go, yeah, okay, I get all that, but I don't have time for that. Right. Okay. Well, in any change environment, you have to give something up. You have to stop doing something. Making sure that you've got a good profile, connecting to people and building your network so you've got a strong network, creating insightful content. That's how you prospect. I write every day because that's how I prospect. So I don't sit on the phone, waste my time ringing people up and annoy them and leave voicemails that are never returned, because that's a waste of time. What I do is I sit and I write. I was in London today. I get up early. I spend the time on the train writing stuff, which will then get published in a week or so. And it's by publishing that stuff, people go, if we're social selling, these are the people that I'm going to trust. If I'm going to roll out social selling locally or globally, I'm going to trust it with Digital Leadership Associates. And that is because we keep putting out consistent content saying, this is, how do you build relationships at a C-level? This is how you do it. And we put a blog out on it. I have a friend who's getting 10 C-level meetings a week, using Twitter. And I write about it and I put it out. Now, that blog actually was published 4 years ago. We've just passed its 4-year anniversary, and it's on my LinkedIn profile. Exactly the way that Paul is basically getting 10 C-level meetings a week using Twitter. That's what I mean by being insightful and educational.
So there's somebody listening right now that's going, well, okay, I can create some content, but like what you're telling me is it might be overwhelming to create so much more new content that just might be too much for him. And I'm thinking back to
Yep.
an article that you've written. Just bear with me if I'm going to wreck it a little bit, but it's something about like around curation and sharing people's information. It's okay. Like it doesn't have to be about just your content. Is that sort of the way to kind of like push through, or is that maybe that article is old? I can't remember, but am I recalling something correctly?
So in my book, I talk about 411. No single person can create enough unique content to put out. So you've got to find other content. So I would call that curating content. So you've got to find other content from somewhere. So I use Flipboard. It's a free app. You just download it to your mobile phone, and you sit on the train or on the way to work, or you may have 20 minutes to sit down during the day. You get to a client and you get early and you check in and you got 20 minutes to wait. You get the Flipboard out and you just search, data security, big data, blockchain, whatever, SaaS, cloud, whatever it is. There will be articles, and you go, oh, that will be interesting for my audience, and you post it out. I do as well. It's actually I use Flipboard to stay in touch with the world and find out what's going on, rather than some of the news channels. But if you look at my Twitter, which is Timothy_Hughes, what I'm doing is I run that what I would call like a TV channel. So I find articles which I think my audience will be interested in. And then I put those out. Now, there are also articles about what we do in terms of social selling. Now, none of them are, hey, buy from us 30% off. They're all articles like what I'm explaining now, like how do you share content, or how do you implement a prospecting culture within a sales team. They're all things, snippets, about 500 words. There'll be a 2-3 minute read. Snackable content that you can.
Right. It's like it makes you an authority, and you're almost being agnostic, going, hey, this is really something of value, and you just weave in your own product as well.
So this is our opinion on it.
More received
but it's
better,
a bit
right?
like it's a bit like what I said earlier on. Your washing machine breaks down, and you go to YouTube and you look at it and you say, well, I can't do it myself. Now, but there'll be someone here listening to it. So, well, if I went to YouTube and I looked at a washing machine, I'd actually do it myself. Fine. There will be people that will read those articles that will go, this will be really useful. But they were, as I said, they were never going to buy from me. But there will be people that will read it and go, do you know, there's no way that I'm going to do that social selling rollout myself. I'm going to get somebody in to do it. And I'm going to get Tim Hughes to do it. And that's obviously when you get people ringing you up and say, that's what that's when you get inbound. And so if you look at our team, what you'll find is that there are, what we do is one of the things that we do with Slack is that we share, we basically, if we have content, we put content on Slack. And so we can share each other's content. So if Adam writes a great blog, and yeah.
Oh, that's a multiplier. So instead of you holding it yourself, it allows you to spread it out. That's a clever idea.
Content. So we're a company of only 8 people, and I have a backlog of content. Because if you've got 8 people understanding that creating content is a way of prospecting, and they want to prospect and actually find people, and all of us are megally passionate about that, and hope that will have come across in my talking today. That what you'll find is that the team works together and you're able to do the heavy lifting. And that should be the same in any sales team. It should be the same in any company, especially if you've got the employees involved in creating content as well. You will never be short of content. And you can then start using that content and actually distributing it and using all of those channels. So, I'll take Adam's blogs and I'll put it out because through my channel, because my audience will be interested in it. So salespeople shouldn't think that they're necessarily working alone. Yeah, the salespeople shouldn't think they're working alone. It's you can work as a team to actually get more from that content.
Right. So I think what I was trying to say there is that it almost sounds like if there could be a role in a company that was like in charge of social selling content that was kind of like coordinating, ensuring, sharing, maybe being the main publisher on your main channels or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that might be a role for either a sales enablement or a marketing person. Some organizations still insist on reviewing all content that's created. I just say to my team, I trust you.
Right on.
And I do. And we never have any problems. I guess if you start rolling out to thousands of people, maybe you do. But if you're actually training the people properly, again, you shouldn't necessarily have that many problems, but you just deal with it. But many hands make light work.
Okay, let's go to a different quick discussion as we're kind of getting close to wrapping up. One of the things that I think has been one of the most successful things I've done is where I've been following somebody in their feed, and it's called social listening, I think, and I just sort of insert a comment or add value in the conversation. I'm curious if that's something that you recommend, or is that a process that you have around that?
Yeah. It's a great way of building a relationship with somebody, whether you know them or not. Our recommendation is don't do politics. Don't do religion. Don't do anything that has any addiction like gambling, drugs, or anything like that, and don't do smart. Keep it all.
It's pretty straightforward. I mean, seriously. When I'm talking about social listening, I'm not talking about, hey, how was your volleyball game? I'm actually talking about like someone goes, hey, this is what I'm seeing happening with the Google algorithm, and then I can sort of insert my sort of a opinion or my marketing insight from that.
Yeah, I'm just making sure that people don't start diving in and having discussions about that, because the reason for we say that is that all of those things are not fact-based. They're all to do with your belief system. So I can come to you and I can provide you with 20 facts why Manchester United are not the best team in the world, but you've been a Manchester United supporter all your life, and you'll tell me that I'm wrong.
So go over like a lead balloon.
So don't do those things. Yeah. Don't do those things. So most definitely, if there's someone that you want to influence, there's someone that you want to get close to. For example, I had a deal recently that was stuck. I'd sent the guy a proposal. I'd not heard back. So I just started, I'm connected to him on Facebook. So I just started making comments on Facebook. And of course, I'm basically waving to him across social. And within a couple of weeks, he said, I've forgotten about that proposal. We need to talk, don't we? So it's a great way to build rapport. It's a great way to start building relationships with people and showing them that you're just the same as them, and that you're trustworthy. And it's a great way of going, we're both Liverpool fans. Why don't we have a coffee? And then you go and have a coffee, and you say, tell us what you do. And they tell you what you do, and then they'll turn around and say, so what do you do? And you tell them what you do, and you've got a chance to pitch.
Yeah, it's just being a human. And the currency is trust. I think that's what people don't understand, is they think that they can shortcut by just doing automation and templates and forms and things of that nature. And that's inhuman, and it doesn't generate any trust. What you're talking about is create a conversation, just be human.
Yes. And if you're selling large value B2B enterprise stuff, you can't ring the finance director and say, can I come and give you a 20-minute pitch? You'll just get laughed at. And especially with GDPR here in Europe, I mean, all of those things just got killed. Right. So it just doesn't work anymore. And this is where you can build long-term relationships, and you can build relationships where people trust you and people buy you. And the great thing is that a lot of people don't get this. So we tell a joke at the end of presentations, which I'll tell you now, Scott.
Well, it's good timing.
Okay. So there's two explorers going through the jungle, and they come across a tiger in a clearing. And the first explorer takes off his backpack and starts putting on his running shoes, sneakers, I think you call them. And the second explorer says, you can't outrun a tiger. And the first explorer says, no, I know I can't, but I just have to outrun you.
Exactly.
and that sums up social media. There are so many people that are shit at it. All of your competitors will be shit at it. All you have to do is be 10, 20, 30% better, and you will, it will just accelerate, because, we quite often use the other metaphor. It's a bit like when you go karting or Formula One, where somebody basically laps you, and then you just can't catch them up, and you won't. The people that are, we've got clients that are building these networks of relationships, and they're actually waiting for a point, and they're going to pull a lever and they're going to activate them, and it's going to pull the rug completely from the whole of the market, because none of their competition will have any of their relationships. They're all cold callers. They've all got SDRs, and what they're going to do is they're going to activate those relationships, and bang, all of a sudden that market is theirs.
So you've basically built up trust equity that you can basically drop on.
Yeah. And what they're doing is that they're building it across. It's a lattice network. So if one of the salespeople goes, they've actually still got connections in accounts. So there's connections across accounts. I'm doing a cross with my hand. You can't see because you're watching in black and white. So they're building this lattice network up, and all the competition will know is that they won't make their number one quarter, and then they won't make their number the next quarter. Then the sales director will get fired. Then they won't make the number the next quarter, and basically it's game over.
Right.
And that can be done right now. You can kill your competition.
That's a pretty powerful statement to end on. Is you can kill your competition using social selling. That might be the title of this podcast. Well, Tim, thank you so much for your time. There's like a few more questions I wanted to go into. If we can afford it, a couple more minutes, I wouldn't mind just asking a couple more.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So one of the questions I have, this is a little more rapid fire, so let's try to move quickly on these, is if you were going to be on LinkedIn, is there any tools, technologies that you would use to augment it? Because I know that for me, managing even just the contacts in my inbox of LinkedIn can be a little overwhelming. Do you use tools like Salesforce or Nimble or anything like that?
We don't, no. We don't. Nimble I've used and is all right. I quite like it because you don't have to type in
it's good for sourcing
contact. You can just suck it in from from social media. No, we generally don't. We're not big tool users. So we use Leadfeeder on our website. We use Brandwatch for social media listening. We use Passel, which is a very quick way of creating blogs, which we augment our actual blog writing with. We use Buffer for scheduling. Do we use any other tools?
What about Twitter?
Twitter, LinkedIn. I mean, I'm on all social. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook.
But is there any Twitter tools right now that are really effective? Because it's like every time the algorithm changes, I had a couple that worked. I think Crowdfire I used for a while, and it doesn't work for me as much anymore. But
it doesn't. No, well, all of the social networks, ever since the Cambridge Analytica thing, all of the social networks are tightening up on the use of APIs. So I used to use Crowdfire, and basically Twitter switched off the API. If you use any sort of tool on LinkedIn, you'll have your account shut. So you have to be really careful. We do a lot of work. We're actually a Microsoft partner. We help Microsoft in terms of their development, in terms of the integration between Dynamics and Sales Navigator. They've also got a social media listening tool, which they're just released a new version of. It's Microsoft Social Engagement, MSE is the product, and we've been helping them with that as well. But we're not big tool users. Partly because I think so many people think it's a shortcut, and actually it's not.
Yeah, I do most of my stuff hand-to-hand combat style, just because I want to be intimate with it and I want to answer my own DMs and stuff. So
yeah, I do it. I do it all manually. If you contact me on Twitter, give me 24 hours and I'll answer you. Unless I'm like on holiday or something like that, I do it every night.
That's awesome. Well, it makes you very accessible, and that might be a good lesson for businesses to, shut off the auto responders and the, outbound automation things, because people are just ignoring them. They're not really useful.
They do. And it just shows that you actually, I don't know what you're doing. You've got to, this is all about relationships. You contacted me. You asked me a question. You asked me to come on here. We've had a conversation. That's what relationships about. And it's not about sending lots of emails and trying to get people to, it's about, we as buyers want to build relationships with brands, and brands should give us the ability to do that.
I think you just summed it up perfectly. Why don't we just leave on that note right there?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Scott, you're welcome. Can I just say, if anybody's listening to this and they've got through it's quite a long one, I really appreciate them. And if they do want to connect to me, please do. But please send me when you send a connection request, please send it with some context to say that you heard me on Groundswell podcast with Scott. And I really appreciate that. And the other thing, Scott, is I'm going to mention my books.
Please do. And also, just to end it with just remind everybody your social accounts that you want them to follow. That'd be great.
Yeah. So two books: Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers, which is all about social selling. Book. It's not about my journey. It's a real proper workbook on how you can start social selling. That's how it's written. Before Matt and I wrote it, I went for a meeting and this sales director said to me, Tim, this is all very, very interesting, but where are the effing leads? And that's how we wrote it. We wanted to make it so that salespeople would get leads and meetings. And the new book that came out in October, which is called Smarketing, How to Achieve Competitive Advantage Through Blended Sales and Marketing. Smarketing is about how we merge sales and marketing. And what we're seeing in the market is there is this merger taking place. Again, this is not about navel gazing or being in an ivory tower. This is actually a book to show you how to bring your sales and marketing departments closer together. You don't necessarily need to merge them. But Hugo, who wrote the book with Adam and myself, has actually done this. So it's a case study book, and we show you what can go wrong, what will go right, what you need to look out for. Again, it's a workbook.
Brilliant.
All available on Amazon. My social media accounts, Timothy_Hughes, which is Twitter. Timothy is TIMOTHY _ then Hughes, which is HUGHES. And I'm on LinkedIn, and it will be either Timothy Hughes or Tim Hughes because it's all in the title.
Thank you so much, Tim. That was amazing, and it was lengthy, but I think we covered a lot of amazing ground. I just want to thank all you listeners for tuning in. Please leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you think. If you want to email me, scott@groundswell.marketing. And without further ado, thank you again, Tim, and mahalo, everyone. We'll see you on the next episode. See you guys.
Thanks.